Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Hoyer-Evans, Curriculum Coordinator here at iPathways. As we spring into the warmer months, I want to revisit the topic of diversity, or as I referred to it in an earlier broadcast, the multiverse. As a refresher to those of you who may have missed it, I think the term diversity doesn't quite capture the multitude of voices, experiences, cultures, backgrounds, languages, and orientations of our students, as it implies there are only two. One, the dominant one, primarily white, and the other, everyone else. This oversimplification and false dichotomy trivializes the richness that exists in our classroom. Like many of you, my adventures leading me to the multiverse took a while. I grew up in a tiny neighborhood outside of Davenport, Iowa, in a white family with very little exposure to anything else. This is now my family. Our two oldest children aren't pictured, but they are as representative of that voyage as the two that can be seen. I recognize that my perspective is formed by the experiences I've had raising children of color. I'm only humbled that it took having to worry about them leaving the house for me to realize just how divided our society truly is. I have philosophically been opposed to racism of any kind for my entire adult life, but it took being followed at the grocery store and sitting on the sports sideline and hearing others talk about the players on the field without realizing I was their mother to understand on a visceral level just how devastating and enraging racism, any ism is, really. Today, I'm not here to offer you answers. I would like to provoke some thought and some soul searching. Does your school or agency actively invite voices different than yours? Is the diversity team remarkably homogeneous? What is diversity or inclusion to you? I would argue that it's working tirelessly to be sure that stories other than those that seem familiar are being told in all places where decisions are being made. Is it enough that we include texts from people of color, women, the LGBTQ community? Or do we need to go further and re-examine our assessment tools, our benchmarks and standards? Why include a unit on Booker T. Washington if he doesn't show up in the GED exam, for instance? Why aren't the accomplishments and histories of people of color or different sexual orientation included in the canon of what we expect our students to know at the end of their time with us? We see before us history changing as people of different backgrounds, religions, and orientations are running for and being elected to public office. If you were a member of one of these communities, would that change the way you felt about your community? We all have verifiable evidence that role models and mentors have a positive impact on people's lives. A quick search on the importance of mentorship garnered 10,600,000 articles, for crying out loud, while search on the importance of role models netted 686 million. We understand that we need to see people like us doing and being in order to see ourselves doing and being. This is why the multiverse must be something we strive to include every single day in every way possible. I have one hard and fast rules of parenting as regards chores, etc. I never ask my kids to do something I can't or won't do. This translates nicely to the classroom. If I want my students to perceive that the voices and experiences I'm teaching them about are important to understand, then I have to be actively willing to show that their voices and experiences are important to understand. What does that look like? You have to decide how to take these steps. Look at the composition of your classes. Find out from your peers and your students what is missing. Include readings and activities that celebrate other cultures or perspectives. Could you take your class on a virtual tour of a far-off place and incorporate music, food, and stories from that place? You could incorporate learning about the type of government that exists there in contrast to our own. The social construct, whatever seems appropriate given what you're trying to teach them, from social studies to language arts to even math. Take them on a tour of Pythagoras's hometown. Conduct some research on other cultures and incorporate that, modeling that inclusiveness that we want to see. In one of my business writing classes, I had my students compose 2 letters of complaint about a lost shipment. One to an American business, one to a Chinese business. They had to find out what the social mores were in China about filing a grievance and figure out how to structure an appropriate response. Even small activities like this remind our learners that other ways exist and they have value. Know ahead of time that there will be some pushback on this. The fall of the Vegas shooting, I decided I wanted to tackle a discussion on guns in America in my composition class, since we were learning about argument. There were raised voices, hurt feelings. One student even stood up and left because she was convinced that we were trying to take away her gun, and no amount of reinsurance would convince her otherwise. We got through the conversation to the other side. We made lists, we looked at the history of the problem, examined legislation, cried, and when we were all done, each person had opened their minds to views they hadn't encountered before. If you create a sacred space in your classroom where everyone feels heard, valued, recognized in all of their glorious differences, they will take that with them out into the world. The educational evangelist in me thinks this is every bit as, if not more important than the data we teach them, which after all is at their fingertips whenever they sit down at a computer or a smartphone. The sense of well-being and acceptance and self-worth, though, that's priceless. That is the ultimate gift of education. Be sure to check out our other iPathways broadcasts on our YouTube channel and log in to iPathwaysLearningLab.org for more resources. And additionally, you can check out the resources added at the end of this broadcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you soon.